My boyfriend got mad because I fell asleep during a movie he picked, said I don't value his interests. Now he pauses movies to quiz me on the plot and gets upset when I can't remember character names. My boyfriend just locked me out of our apartment because I couldn't name the protagonist's childhood friend from the movie we watched last night. I'm sitting in my car at 11 p.m. writing this because I genuinely don't know if I'm losing my mind or if this has gotten completely out of hand. He's texting me right now saying I can come back inside when I'm ready to take his passions seriously. This started about 3 months ago. I fell asleep during some indie film he picked on a Tuesday night after I worked a double shift at the hospital. I'm a nurse and I'd been on my feet for 16 hours. I literally dozed off during the opening credits. When I woke up, he had this look on his face like I'd cheated on him or something. He said, "You don't value what matters to me." I apologized and said I was exhausted, that we could watch it another time. He didn't talk to me for 2 days. After that, he started doing this thing where he'd pause movies randomly and quiz me. Not just once, multiple times per movie. What's her motivation in this scene? Why did he say that? What do you think the symbolism means here? At first I thought he was just trying to make movie nights more interactive or whatever. I tried to play along. But then he started getting genuinely upset when I gave the wrong answer or said I didn't know. 2 weeks ago we were watching something and he paused it during an action scene. Asked me what the villain's name was. I said I thought it was David or Daniel or something. It was Damien. He got up and left the room, said I clearly wasn't paying attention, and that he was tired of putting effort into sharing his interests with someone who doesn't care. I told him that was ridiculous. I was watching the movie. I just got one name wrong. He said if I was really watching I would remember because he'd already explained the character's backstory earlier. Last week he started making me recap the plot before bed. Like a test. He'd sit there with his arms crossed and when I'd mess up details he'd shake his head and correct me. One night I mixed up 2 side characters and he said, "This is exactly what I'm talking about." You're not even trying. I told him this was getting weird. That movie nights were supposed to be fun and relaxing. He said I was being defensive because I knew he was right about me not respecting his interests. Then last night happened. We were watching this foreign film with subtitles. I was reading them and following along. About halfway through he paused it and asked me to name all the main characters and describe their relationships to each other. I got the main guy's name right. I forgot the girlfriend's name and called her the girlfriend. I couldn't remember the best friend's name at all. He lost it. Started yelling about how he bends over backwards to care about my nursing stuff and my friends and my family, but I can't even remember basic character information from a movie he specifically chose for us. I said, "It's just a movie. I'm watching it with you. I just have a bad memory for names." He said, "No, you have a bad memory for things you don't care about. You remember patient names at work just fine. That's not even true. I literally have to write down patient names because I see so many people." But he wouldn't listen. I tried to leave the room to cool off and he followed me, still going on about how he feels completely invalidated in this relationship and how I make no effort to connect with him on his level. I finally snapped and said, "I'm not going to be interrogated about every movie we watch. This is insane." He told me to get out. Said if I thought caring about his interests was insane then maybe I should leave until I figured out what kind of partner I wanted to be. I grabbed my keys and left because I didn't want to keep fighting. Now he's texting me saying he's setting a boundary, and that from now on if I can't engage meaningfully with the movies he picks, we're not watching them together anymore. He also said I owe him an apology for calling him insane and for dismissing his feelings. My sister says this is controlling and weird and that normal people don't quiz their partners on movies. My best friend from work says maybe he just has a different love language and I'm not meeting his needs. I don't know anymore. I feel like I'm going crazy. Is wanting to just watch a movie without being tested really that unreasonable? Am I the butthole for refusing to play along with his quizzes? I came home from my shift yesterday and found him sitting in the living room with a binder. He had printed out screenshots from the movie we fought about. Scene by scene. Character photos with their names typed underneath. A full plot summary he'd written himself. He had it all organized in plastic sheet protectors with tabs. He said, "I made this for you, so you can study before we watch movies together." I just stood there holding my work bag. I didn't know what to say. He was looking at me like he'd done something thoughtful. Like this was a gift. I asked him if he was serious. He said completely serious. He said if I reviewed the materials before we watched films together, I'd be able to participate meaningfully in our movie nights and we wouldn't have these conflicts anymore. I told him I wasn't studying for movie night like it was a college exam. He got that look on his face. The same one from when I fell asleep. He said I was being dismissive again. Then my mom called. She'd heard about the fight from my sister and wanted to check on me. I stepped into the bedroom to talk to her, and when I came back out he was testing the door lock, making sure it worked properly. He saw me watching and said, "Just making sure everything's secure." That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the binder. About him sitting there printing pages and organizing tabs while I was at work saving actual lives. At 2 a.m. I got up and looked through it. He'd included character backstories that weren't even in the movie. Things he'd looked up online. There were blank pages in the back labeled "Notes," where I guess I was supposed to write during the movie. The next morning he asked if I'd reviewed the materials. I said no. He asked when I planned to. I said never, that this wasn't normal, that couples don't do this. He said his ex used to watch documentaries with him and she always remembered everything. Said she actually cared about connecting with him. I asked why they broke up then. He got quiet and said that wasn't relevant. I called my sister during my lunch break. She said I needed to get out. That this was controlling behavior and it would get worse. I told her it wasn't that bad, that maybe I was overreacting. She said, "He locked you out of your own apartment because you forgot a character's name." When I got home yesterday he was watching a movie by himself. I asked what he was watching. He said it didn't matter since I wouldn't remember it anyway. I tried to sit down next to him and he paused it. Asked if I was planning to actually pay attention this time. I lost it. I told him I was done. That I wasn't going to live like this anymore. That movie nights were supposed to be fun and he'd turned them into some weird test of my love for him. He said if I couldn't handle basic emotional labor in a relationship then maybe I wasn't mature enough to be with him. That his needs weren't being met and I was too selfish to see it. I'm staying at my sister's now. He's been texting me articles about different love languages and how important it is to show interest in your partner's hobbies. He sent me a quiz about communication styles. Said we could work through this if I was willing to put in the work. My best friend from the hospital said maybe he has a point. That I should at least try the binder thing once to show good faith. But my sister keeps saying this is how it starts and it'll get worse. I don't know what's real anymore. Is caring about someone really supposed to feel like homework? He showed up at the hospital. I was in the middle of checking a patient's vitals when one of the other nurses told me someone was waiting for me in the lobby. I thought maybe it was my sister dropping off something I'd forgotten at her place. But when I got down there he was sitting in one of those plastic chairs with the binder on his lap. He smiled when he saw me. Said he wanted to bring me lunch and thought we could eat together in the cafeteria. Talk things through like adults. I told him I was working and he needed to leave. He said he'd wait. That he took the afternoon off specifically to see me and he wasn't going anywhere until we talked. My supervisor saw us and asked if everything was okay. I said yes but could feel my face getting hot. He introduced himself to her. Shook her hand. Said he was just bringing his girlfriend lunch because she'd been so stressed lately. After she walked away I told him he needed to go. He said I was being dramatic. That he drove all the way here and the least I could do was give him 20 minutes. He held up a bag from my favorite sandwich place like that made it okay. I took him to the cafeteria just to get him out of the lobby. We sat in the corner and he pulled out the binder again. Started showing me the new sections he'd added. He'd made a whole page about communication exercises we could do. Listed movies we should watch together with difficulty ratings. Easy, medium, hard. I asked him why he was really here. He said because he loved me and wanted to fix this. That all relationships take work and he was willing to put in the effort if I was. I told him this wasn't normal relationship work. That showing up at my job was crossing a line. He said I wasn't answering his texts, so what choice did he have? Then he said something that made my stomach drop. He said, "I talked to your friend. The one from work you're always mentioning. She agrees with me." I asked what he meant. He said he'd messaged her on social media. Explained the situation. She told him that I'd complained about being tired lately and maybe I wasn't investing enough energy in the relationship. I couldn't believe it. I pulled out my phone right there and texted her. She responded immediately saying she was sorry but he'd seemed really concerned about me and she thought she was helping. That he'd made it sound like I was depressed or something. I showed him the text. Told him he had no right to contact my friends. He said he was worried about me and wanted perspective from people who knew me. That I was being unreasonable. I got up to leave and he grabbed my wrist. Not hard but enough to stop me. Said we weren't done talking. A patient's family member at the next table looked over. I pulled my arm away and told him if he ever touched me like that again I'd call security. He let go and his whole face changed. He started crying, right there in the hospital cafeteria. Said he didn't know what was wrong with him. That he just loved me so much and couldn't stand the thought of losing me over something so stupid. People were staring. I felt everyone watching us. I sat back down and tried to calm him down. Told him we could talk later but he needed to leave now. He wiped his eyes and nodded. Said he'd go, but then he asked me to just promise I'd look at the binder one more time. Really look at it. He said if I did that and still wanted to break up he'd accept it. I said fine, anything to get him to leave. He handed me the binder and left. I threw it in the trash can on my way back upstairs. That night my sister called me crying. He'd shown up at her apartment. Told her I'd agreed to work things out with him but that she was poisoning me against him. She told him to leave and he did, but not before saying she was jealous because she'd been single for 2 years and couldn't stand seeing me happy. She wanted to call the police. I told her not yet. That maybe he'd calm down now that I'd basically agreed to his terms. But then yesterday my mom called. He'd sent her a Facebook message. A long one. About how much he loved me and how I was going through something and pushing everyone away. How he was trying to be patient but my family wasn't helping. He asked her to talk to me about respecting his boundaries. My mom was confused. Asked what boundaries he was talking about. I explained everything. The quizzes, the binder, showing up at my work, contacting my friends and family. She said I needed to end this now. That this was stalking behavior. I said it wasn't that serious. He was just upset about the breakup. She said, "You didn't break up with him. You're staying at your sister's but you never actually ended it." She was right. I'd been avoiding it, hoping he'd just accept that we were done without me having to say the words. I called him last night. Told him it was over. That he needed to stop contacting me and my family. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You're making a huge mistake. I'm the only person who actually sees you." I hung up. This morning I woke up to 47 text messages from him. Most of them were long paragraphs about everything he'd done for me. How much time he'd spent making the binder. How I was throwing away someone who actually cared. The last one said, "I still have a key to the apartment. I'm going to get my stuff today. I deserve that much. I don't know what to do. My sister says I should change the locks. My mom says I should go with him to make sure he actually just gets his stuff. My friend from work, the one he contacted, keeps apologizing and saying she had no idea. I feel like I'm watching my life fall apart because I fell asleep during a movie 3 months ago. I went to the apartment with my sister because my mom insisted I shouldn't go alone. We got there at noon like I'd told him. His car was already parked outside. When we walked in he was sitting on the couch. Not packing, just sitting there with his phone in his hand. He looked at my sister and said, "This is a private conversation." She said, "I'm not leaving her alone with you." He stood up, told me he'd been thinking about everything and he realized what the real problem was. Said I had attachment issues from my dad leaving when I was young and I was sabotaging our relationship because I was scared of being happy. I asked where he got that from. He said he'd been reading about it, that everything made sense now. The falling asleep, not remembering details, pushing him away when he tried to help me engage better. My sister told him to get his stuff and go. He ignored her completely, kept talking to me like she wasn't there. Said he'd found a couples therapist who specialized in attachment disorders. Already made an appointment for next week. I told him we were done. That there was no appointment, no therapy, no us anymore. He needed to pack his things and leave his key. He said, "You don't mean that. You're just overwhelmed." Then he tried to hug me. I stepped back and he looked hurt. Actually hurt, like I'd slapped him. He said, "See? You can't even accept basic affection. This is exactly what I'm talking about." My sister got between us. Told him he had 30 minutes to get his stuff or she was calling the police. He finally started packing but he was talking the whole time. About how I was throwing away the best thing that ever happened to me. How nobody else would be as patient with my issues as he'd been. He packed 1 box. Just 1. Said he'd come back for the rest later this week. I told him no, whatever he didn't take today I was donating. He laughed like I was joking. He left his key on the counter. My sister wanted to change the locks anyway but I thought that was it. He got his stuff. He left. It was over. I was wrong. 2 days later my supervisor called me into her office. Said someone had filed a complaint. About me. Anonymous but detailed. The complaint said I'd been sleeping during shifts. Making medication errors. That I was emotionally unstable and shouldn't be working with patients. It included specific dates and times. All of them were false. Every single one, but someone had put a lot of effort into making it look real. My supervisor said she didn't believe it, but she had to follow protocol. They were reviewing my recent shift reports and patient logs, talking to the other nurses who'd worked with me. I was on paid leave until they finished the investigation. I knew it was him. I knew, but I couldn't prove it. When I got home, there was a package on my doorstep. No return address. Inside was the binder, but he'd added new pages. Printed screenshots of my social media. Photos of me at work that I'd posted months ago. A timeline he'd made of our entire relationship with every fight marked in red. The last page was a handwritten note. You need help. I'm the only one who sees it. When you're ready to be honest with yourself, I'll be here. My sister wanted to go to the police. I said there was nothing illegal about sending someone a binder. She said it was harassment. I said they wouldn't care. But then my mom called. He'd sent her the same binder. She was freaking out. Said some of the pages had things in them she'd told him in confidence. Private family stuff. He'd been documenting everything. I called him. He answered on the first ring like he'd been waiting. I asked him what he wanted. He said he wanted me to admit I had a problem. That I needed help. That he was trying to save me from myself. I told him to stop contacting my family. To stop whatever he did at my work. He said he didn't know what I was talking about. That maybe I was paranoid. Another symptom. Then he said, I saw you got cleared at work. That's good. I'd hate for your career to suffer because of personal problems. He knew about the investigation being dropped. They'd only told me that morning. Which meant he'd been watching. Or calling. Or something. I hung up and called the police non-emergency line. Told them everything. They said unless he threatened me directly there wasn't much they could do. That I should document everything and call back if he showed up at my home or work again. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept checking the locks. Looking out the window. My sister stayed over. Around 2 a.m. my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. It was a photo of me and my sister in the apartment. Through the window. Taken from outside. The message said, "You're not alone. You never were." My sister grabbed the phone and called 911. The police came. Took a report. Drove around the block. Didn't find anyone. Said they'd increase patrols in the area but there wasn't enough for an order of protection yet. The officer asked if I had somewhere else I could stay. I said my sister's. He suggested I go there tonight. We packed a bag and left. I kept looking behind us the whole drive. Every set of headlights felt like him. My sister had to tell me twice we were safe. But I don't feel safe. I feel like I'm being watched all the time now. And the worst part is I don't know what he wants. An apology? For me to come back? To admit he's right about me? I don't know what happens next. I don't know how to make this stop. He got arrested 3 days ago. My sister and I were at her place when the police called. They said they'd picked him up outside my apartment building. He'd been sitting in his car across the street for 6 hours. When they approached him, he had binoculars in the passenger seat and a notebook full of my schedule. What time I left for work. What time I came home. What I wore each day. They found other things too. Printed emails from my work that he shouldn't have had access to. Photos of me he'd taken through windows. Pages and pages of notes about my routines, my friends, my family. He'd been tracking everything for months. Not just since we broke up. Since we were together. The officer said they were charging him with stalking and harassment. Asked if I wanted to file for an order of protection. I said yes. I had to go to the station to give a statement. Walking through everything out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. The quizzes. The binder. Showing up at my work. Contacting my family. The photo through the window. All of it together painted a picture I'd been too close to see clearly. The detective told me his ex had filed a similar report 2 years ago. That's why they took mine so seriously. She described the same escalation. The testing, the control disguised as caring, the surveillance when she tried to leave. She got an order of protection and moved to a different city. He never told me any of that. Just said they'd broken up because she didn't appreciate him. The preliminary hearing was yesterday. He showed up in a suit. Hair combed. Looked like he was going to a job interview. His lawyer tried to argue that everything was a misunderstanding. That he was just a concerned boyfriend worried about my mental health. That the notes were to help track my moods so he could be a better partner. The judge looked at the evidence for maybe 5 minutes. Granted a full protection order. 2 years. He's not allowed within 500 feet of me, my work, my family's homes. No contact of any kind. When the judge read the order, he stared at me the whole time. Not angry, just confused. Like he genuinely couldn't understand why this was happening to him. His mother was there. She came up to me in the hallway after. Asked me why I was doing this to her son. Said he'd been nothing but good to me and I was ruining his life over a misunderstanding. I didn't say anything. My sister told her to back off. His mother said I'd regret this. That when I came to my senses and wanted him back, he wouldn't be there. I went back to work last week. The investigation cleared me of everything. My supervisor apologized for having to put me through it. Said they'd traced the complaint back to an anonymous email account but knew it was false as soon as they checked the actual records. My coworker, the one he contacted, brought me coffee on my first day back. Said she felt terrible, that she'd never have talked to him if she'd known what was really happening. I told her it wasn't her fault. He was good at making himself seem reasonable. I moved to a new apartment last weekend. Didn't tell anyone the address except my mom and sister. Changed my phone number. Made all my social media private. It feels extreme, but I don't care anymore. My sister helped me move. While we were unpacking, she found the original binder in one of my boxes. I'd grabbed it from the trash at the hospital without really thinking about it. Evidence, I guess. She asked if I wanted to throw it out. I kept it, not because I want to remember him. Because I want to remember the warning signs I ignored. The little things that seemed weird but not alarming. The way he made me question my own reactions. How he isolated me slowly enough that I didn't notice until it was almost too late. I've been seeing a therapist. She specializes in controlling relationships. Says what I experienced was intimate partner abuse even though he never hit me. That the surveillance and the testing and the way he turned everything back on my supposed issues was all part of a pattern. It helps to have a name for it. To know I wasn't crazy or overreacting. I heard through mutual friends that he's telling people I had a breakdown. That I made everything up because I couldn't handle a committed relationship. Some people believe him. I don't care anymore. The people who matter know the truth. My mom asked if I was okay. Really okay? I said I don't know yet. Some days I feel fine. Other days I catch myself checking over my shoulder or thinking I see his car. But it gets a little easier every week. The protection order is good for 2 years. After that I can renew it or let it expire. I'll decide then. Right now I'm just trying to build a life that feels like mine again. I still can't watch movies without thinking about it. Maybe someday I will. Or maybe I'll just find other things I like better. I'm safe now. That's what matters.